Welcome to a discussion of decisive classification and more efficient use of the world's knowledge. First of all, only a small percentage of the world's knowledge is on Google and is accessible by people. But even the amount that is there is overwhelming to the average person who is subject to the declassification and random display of huge amounts of information. Decisive classification and our global knowledge orchard are a way to solve both those problems. The global knowledge orchard, one subject at a time, is to put a lot more of the world's information in a place where it is accessible. And equally important is a whole concept called decisive classification, which will allow the individual to zero in on what's relevant for him. And I think as we go along, you'll see what I mean by decisive classification. All these categories that are up here are a start on it. So you've got, for instance, applications, and the fact that we use the SIC codes or NAICS codes that are used by the federal government is useful because a lot of people are accustomed to using this, and so it's a very efficient way to go. So one part of decisive classification is use a system that people are familiar with and will therefore help them make decisions better rather than some system that isn't. And we've got corporations, we've got products. We have a lot of other things that we really won't get into here, but we have them up there for reasons because they help you make decisions better by going in through those particular keywords. But the bottom line here is that you need to organize all these products and words that you put in here, and we do that through what we call decisive classification. And I think as the first example, let's go to the geographic classification. Now, for people who are suppliers of products, for instance, you want to know what your markets are and activities around the world. And it's very tricky to try to define this in a way that will help you make your decisions because there are 220 or 30 different countries in the world. But from a decisive classification basis, we divided the continents. Within a continent, we have the regions, and you can click on East Asia. And most importantly, when you get to East Asia, and if you're interested in, Australia or China, you can click on those. But what about the rest of East Asia that isn't represented by these countries? Okay, here it is. It includes the Cook Islands and, Brunei and American Samoa, Fiji, and so forth there. So chances are, in fact, 99% of the people doing decisive classification in terms of geography are going to want to lump all these little countries together rather than consider them individually. So decisive classification dictates that you put all these in one place and you have a nice precise definition. So right off the bat, then we have decisive classification on a geographic basis. So let's move on then to subjects and products and so forth. We can go into processes and subjects. But in each case, we have a hierarchy. We have parents, we have children, we have siblings. And then we do this in other languages, and we try to eliminate the synonyms and so forth. So once you do all this, you have some precise definitions. But rather than losing all this information and having this information randomly available, what we need to do is to organize people to make decisions, societies and institutes and commercial organizations and so forth, get precise definitions in English, Chinese, and Spanish, and then we've got about half the world here. And so we had a group of catalyst manufacturers, such as, Mcilvaine and Haldor Topsoe and so forth like that on the phone. And we were in the middle of another discussion, but I stopped them and said, look, we're all getting confused here about what we talk about on catalyst maintenance and what are the children and let's get them defined, and we'll get it into Chinese, which CoLogic's agreed to do since they, their top expert is Chinese. And so we agreed that there's actually three categories here. You can rejuvenate it, regenerate it, or actually just do physical cleaning. And so we defined all those terms. We got it in the other languages, and that is a child of catalyst maintenance and so forth. So this is one product at a time, very painstaking. But when it's done, it's hugely important in helping people make decisions rather than just look things up. So there's a good example, I think, from the product standpoint. Let's move on here. And from the application standpoint, you can simply just go in by the SIC code. But ultimately, for products that are fairly important, it's good to take it much further. And here's one example. In the parent-child software that we have, every parent number is identified. So coal number 3 is coal only as a child of fossil-fired boilers. And all the way out here, centrifugal pump number 609 is only the child of 219, 401, 217, so forth. So this whole string is identified by one number. And why is this so important? Well, the bottom line is there are only about 6 pump companies in the world that can address an application where all these yellow boxes are filled in. And if you move from limestone to lime, there's 100 pump companies that can bid on the project. If you move from spray towers to tray towers, there's 100 companies that can bid on it. But the bottom line is that most of the projects that require these pumps are this precise grouping, and they elect spray towers, they elect limestone, and therefore they are going to need these very specialized pumps. So this is huge to identify all this because you've narrowed it down to just 6 or 7 pump companies rather than hundreds when you can identify it with this just one number. So again, slowly but surely, this can be built into an extremely effective system and I think you're beginning to see how it can the major impact on the world's productivity as this is all organized. So let's get back into this decisive classification again, and we'll go down a little bit further. We just went down through the applications here, but let's go into company classification next here, because this is particularly important with the Chinese companies. Duns has a pretty good system, certainly, but we've got it a little bit different perspective. What we're just trying to do is to match the Chinese name and the name in English for any one of the companies that we follow. And when you get down to people like, let's just go to the Shanghais and things here. First of all, they're required by law to list their city first, so that's confusing enough. But then there's all sorts of variations going from one language to another as to how it's displayed in that other language. And so what we have is for every subsidiary and for the parent company, we identify the parent company number and who the parent company is. And therefore, we decisively classify the world's companies by a corporate number and don't rely on a word descriptor, which I think is extremely important. And so you can go down even a little bit further, and I think this is equally important here, is the special focus classification. And you can decisively classify everything based on the search for one subject, one product, one application, and so forth. And that really is looking at it maybe from the end user standpoint who has to buy a product for a specific application. But a lot of your people are not going to have that orientation. And for instance, what happens if you're a water monitoring professional, for instance, you're going to be wanting to look at a number of applications. You're going to be wanting to look at a number of products. And so to do that, we can look at this whole graphical display here. And so you can click on aquaculture, for instance, and you can see the applications on aquaculture. If you're looking at groundwater, you look at all the groundwater applications, or you can just go in to see the instruments in groundwater and information about that. We happen to show this for some Chinese. If you're going for systems, then there's all these information, and then you of course click on here and get the the detailed information on it, little summary, and so forth. Then you can go into all the details. And so we're peeling back the onion, and there's already just with this sample here that we have on really the Chinese and water monitoring, which you'll be able to see on the free site. Just in a few weeks, we put up hundreds and hundreds of documents there. So that actually shows up on this free site in that manner. But what we've basically conceived here is that there are a lot of people that want to look at things from these specialty standpoints. So, for instance, here's your monitoring professional, water monitoring professional, and he can go through the main gate, subject by subject, and get all this information. But he can also go through this easy gate that we've set up here. And this particular easy gate really is from the perspective of hydrologists and geologists and so forth that are, they might have a minor interest in the industries, and that's kind of clicked on the other industries, but their major interests are groundwater and surface water and so forth. So this really is set up for that group of people from their orientation. But for them, this is an extremely valuable way to go, and it's certainly head and shoulders better than going down through, Google and then back in through the main gate, because of course everything in the Global Orchard is available and does pop up on Google as well. So the reason here is that what we really need are collaborators who want to have people view the world the way they see it. And I would liken that, for instance, to the incentives that the airlines, American and United, had in the early days to set up computerized airline travel schedules. They didn't want to just set them up for their own airlines because everybody had to make connections and so forth. So they had to really make it convenient for the person that would be using their system, and so they had to put other information that made them the go-to site. But even though they were putting up some competitor information, it was an extremely great competitive advantage to have a travel agent or somebody going in through their site rather than some other way. And so for a collaborator, helping us put the world's knowledge out there has a selfish motive in that because of these easy gates, you can help view the world the way they view it. And another way of saying that is that you will then appeal to the audiences that are going to be buying their products anyway. And so having numbers of these special gates is going to enhance the decision-making process. And so we are looking forward to having a number of companies collaborating with us. Thank you for taking some time to view this. It's all up on our website. And we have tremendous amounts of information up there, some whole very novel concepts, interweb views, and all sorts of different things. And this is Bob Mcilvaine. You can reach me at 847-784-0012, extension 112. You can also get a hold of us here at the Mcilvaine Company, and I'm R. Mcilvaine at McIlvaineCompany.com, and look forward to talking to you.